Steve, UTSA gets the win again, 5-2. They beat FIU 30-10, one game away from being bowl eligible, and a nice lead, a pretty comfortable lead in the Conference USA standings. Hey everyone, welcome to SlasherU. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with Steve Feck, the co-host of the show, and we are recapping the 2-1-0, the Roadrunners, beating the FIU Panthers. We thought this game was going to be a little bit more of a blowout than it was. The spread was not taken care of by the Roadrunners, by UT San Antonio, but they still get the job done, 30-10. It really was, in my mind, a slow start. I was a little nervous to begin with, not going to lie on this one, but Frank Harris and company finds a way to get it done. A lot of fun things still to talk about in this one, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch the game, it was a balanced attack. You know, Barnes had 2 rushing touchdowns, in the second half. Frank Harris, again, got the job done. It would be very easy for him to try to want to go out there and match the numbers that were put up by some of the other quarterbacks in the conference against FIU. Because what was it, 77-0 that
73, yeah.
73-0 that they lost to Western Kentucky. So it's tempting for that. But again, it shows the maturity. And it shows the reason why he's going to be the number 1 draft pick for my New York Football Giants. They got to stop winning. I can't believe I'm actually saying that after the last 10 years of watching that team. They got to stop winning because they have to be able to get Frank Harris. And I'm really afraid, you put Frank Harris at the combine, he's going to just zoom up the boards because he's just that dynamic of an athlete.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we see him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl too.
I thought there was somebody alluded to that they would already come and spoken to him, and actually several of the players involved. Maybe it was the week before they talked about that. Maybe it was the Western Kentucky game they were talking about that. But yeah, I mean, you and I, it's hard for us to be unbiased, at this point. I mean, we love our Roadrunners.
We're pretty on board.
Yeah, we love the fan base, but they've earned it. This is a fun football team to watch week in, week out. And the more you watch them, the more fun they become and the more excited. Because, I try to share it with friends and everything, and they're like, what's up with this UT San Antonio? Because, I know you kind of root for the Spurs, but, it's because they played in the ABA, but I don't understand why you're so excited. Then I finally get them to watch a game where I sit them down saying, look, we're watching UTSA. I don't care what SEC game's on. We're watching this game. And once they do, they're like, wow, I see what you see there. Their defense made a statement, because that's always been like the little whisper that all of the Power 5 people are always talking about, saying, yeah, they score points, but can they stop anybody? Could they really stop anybody if they got a really serious Power 5 challenger in a bowl game? I think they're showing that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And really, FIU got a really nice drive at the end. Okay, the last drive at the end of the game when all of the substitutes were in for UTSA. They went 70 yards, 9 plays, 46 seconds left. They got their final touchdown. So that's great, okay, and that messes with point spreads or whatever. But there was, for me, now I didn't watch it live. I watched it on tape. You were actually watching it in real time. So I can see at the beginning why you might have been like, oh my God, is this going to blow up in our face, us hyping them all year long or whatever it would be. But I never had a doubt that they were going to win that football game. It was just a matter of how long they're going to keep the starters in and what kind of numbers might have been put up.
Yeah, we saw that Frank Harris didn't even finish the full game. He had 2 passing touchdowns in the first half, which was fantastic. Both came in the second quarter, because the first quarter, in my mind, was slow. Scoreless in the first quarter. That's something I did not expect to say during this recap show after seeing what Western Kentucky did to them and then seeing how UTSA played against Western Kentucky in the week prior. Frank Harris still played great, though. 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He did lose a fumble, though. That was something that was a little concerning. It was at the beginning of the game. That kind of came with, it was kind of in the mix of that slow start, though. And you're right. With the UTSA defense, they really had to show up. UTSA lost the battle of time of possession by
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 minutes, and that defense really stuck in there. With the exception of that garbage time touchdown, because that's exactly what it was. I mean, let's call it how we see it. This was a 30-3 game, really, with the starters in. The biggest thing that I was really surprised about, and I talked about this last week as well when we recapped UTSA. We keep talking about how great these receivers are, and still no different. These receivers are amazing. I mean, the touchdown catch by Franklin this week was absolutely unreal. Okay. Probably one of the best catches I've seen all season. But I'm so shocked with this running game. Last week, I was shocked about how great Brady was. This week, Brady really didn't do much of anything. And it wasn't the fact that he wasn't productive. He just didn't really get the carries. The carries went to Kavorian Barnes, the freshman out of St. Augustine, Texas. And wow, did he have a coming out party? Barnes really showed up. 20 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns with a longest run of 23 yards. He had a fantastic football game. If they now have a plethora of receivers for Frank Harris to throw to and a running back committee between Barnes and Brady, this is something to be excited about. This is something to be really excited about. Jeff Traylor knows what he's doing.
Yes.
He's getting his team ramped up for conference play, and he's getting them to legit, no doubt, fire on all cylinders, especially when you have issues with injuries on the offensive line. I mean, the story about the defensive player that had only played one offensive snap and then starts at the offensive line this week, incredible story, don't get me wrong, but that's a glaring concern in the long run. So if you can find a way to have your skill players firing on all cylinders at multiple levels, it's exactly what you need, especially heading into Conference USA play.
Well, it also speaks to how Traylor built this program. I mean, obviously that wasn't his first choice, is to take this defensive lineman, but for the most part, linemen play on both sides of the ball in high school. I mean, not all of the time, but it's pretty commonplace. So, I mean, he's bringing in guys that are athletic, but guys that have good football sense. I don't want to call it common sense, but when you look at that roster, you just see that not only are they enjoying themselves as a unit, they also embrace what Traylor is putting out there and what the program is asked to do. And, I think it's smart to now introduce Barnes into this mix, because I think they're almost to the point that they're looking at getting, sure, the conference title, but getting the best bowl situation for themselves that they can.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I mean, I don't think they call it the Jerry Jones Bowl, but there is a bowl game up in Arlington, is there not, in the new Cowboy Stadium?
Yeah.
I think they created that. I mean, how awesome would that be? Because it's going to attract a Power 5 school, but if you have a program like UTSA, an in-state program, a fan base that travels, and certainly traveling in-state, that's a lot easier than having to try to find flights around, the holiday season to different places. I really think that UTSA, they take care of each week, but I really think they know, what, we can start looking ahead a little bit or planning ahead a little bit, because we really are as good as we thought we were during spring practices.
The path to 10-2 is absolutely doable, but it all starts in the next 2 weeks. Their next 2 weeks are their toughest challenges for the rest of the season. And it starts next week against North Texas. North Texas is one of those teams that are almost identical to Western Kentucky. When you look at the ball, in team stats, they average about 500 yards total offense, and they give up about 450 total offense, almost identical to UTSA. This is one of those shootout kind of Western Kentucky football games that you have to be expected to play again. We're going to really dig into this one. This will be one of our 5 for Friday games. Currently on the line, UTSA is favored by 9.5. North Texas just took care of La Tech by about 20 points, though. In my mind, before we even dig into this game, if they have a slow start like they did in this one, it could be trouble. Be trouble. Traylor's going to have to make some adjustments this week. He will. Just some thoughts before we even get started, and before we obviously recap that one with the preview on Friday morning.
I wonder if it's going to be right from the beginning a shootout, like not like letting the momentum start to build. I wonder if both teams are going to are going to come out just firing right off the bat. Maybe this is the game where we thought it was going to be against Western Kentucky, and then set whatever over you want, and it's going to be above that. North Texas has been a little bit inconsistent on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
So I think being able to exploit any either, I hate to call them dumb penalties because I could barely play flag football in intramurals, let alone play it at the major college football level. But I mean, they seem to be a little bit mistake prone, but in-state rivalries, that's huge in Texas, especially in a conference like this. I think when you're playing schools, within your state, I think that makes a big difference. I think when they play UTEP, I think when they play Rice, those other two sides are going to be, even though they're not nearly the caliber of the Roadrunners, they're going to be really amped up because now they want to knock off their in-state bullies, if you will. Because really, the last 2 years, UTSA, they're not bullies in a mean way, but they're intimidating. They're like, kind of get out of my way, get out of my way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way to look at it. North Texas has scored in every single one of their games since in the first quarter since the SMU loss, where they lost 48-10. So again, with that slow start, from anywhere between 7 to 14 points is what North Texas has scored in the last 4 or 5 games since their loss to SMU. And that was a huge SMU loss. So if you find a way to fire hard off the ball right from the get-go, and you get the head start, you're in a good standing. We'll talk about more of that on our Friday show, 5 for Friday, and of course our UTSA preview here on YouTube.